another thing I had been considering or thinking about in terms of the sublime feminine, and that is that, in many ways, to me, women's bodies are the original sublime landscape. I mean, if you think about it, you mentioned motherhood, and that's what sparked this, but women's bodies create life, bleed monthly without dying in cycles, transform food into milk, like literally create sustenance. And these are literally, to me, awe-inspiring, borderline supernatural acts that in some senses women have been taught to hide, medicalize, or be ashamed of. And that's the thing. The feminine body isn't just beautiful, it is sublime. It's capable of experiences that inspire both terror and wonder that men can't possibly experience. Childbirth is simultaneously an act of creation, transformation, and in the past, and even now, near death, that fundamentally alters a woman forever. Their body, their mind, everything. It changes everything, and yet women are expected to bounce back and act like nothing happened, go back to work 2 months later, if they even get paid time off, right? Menstruation, lunar cycles, right? It connects women to flow in a way that men can't quite understand, and rhythm. But yet we try to make that invisible, right? I mean, the society, it's not talked about with men. It's scary to men, again, because it's a woman's power. Even menopause is another great example. It's a second liberation, in a sense. Like, all of a sudden now you're not at risk of becoming pregnant and having your body changed. You have more control over your body in some senses, and it also brings wisdom. But it's treated as if you're an old horse. You're out to pasture now. It's treated as a decline and not what it really is, which is a transformation into a new body, essentially a new woman, and yet the same woman. And so to me, these again are experiences that have, whether deliberate or not, have been diminished to really keep women disconnected from their true power. And I think by talking about it, we bring it out again into the light and call it for what it is, a power grab, a form of control by the patriarchy, by men, because again of fear. And it's all fear, rather than embracing that. It's easier to say this is icky. I don't want to deal with this because it's I don't know. How does that land?
Yes. Right? Like, yes, and all of the things. As someone who, in the maiden mother crone archetype is still securely in the maiden section. So it's like, I haven't experienced the vastness of what it means to be a woman in all of these different ways. But in my experience, just to speak to that to start, the amount of shame that is piled on to women for these things that they can't control is wild. I remember the fear that I had in needing to get a bra for the first time, which isn't even like a gross, quote unquote gross thing, even like having a period is, right? It is something that is like, no, this is just now that you get to be a certain age, this is what you're going to do to take care of yourself. And of course we could have a much broader discussion about why do women need to wear bras to begin with. But of course there's like the medical help that provides. It's actually really good for your back to have it's a whole thing. But to go back to just the root of like, I did not want to tell my dad or my brother. I was terrified to talk to my mom about it. My aunt brought it up and I felt so betrayed that my mom had told my aunt. And it was just like this whole thing that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that like everyone in the world knows that like this thing is happening with my body. And it was just like so embarrassing, deeply, deeply embarrassing. And then you add the period on top of it. And it's this thing that, some women aren't even told about. And one of my dear friends, her mom actually once told me the story of when she got her first period. And she thought she was dying because she did not know what it was. And she was like, my body is bleeding out. I am dying. And like ran downstairs and was like, Mom, I don't know what's going on. And her mom was like, we don't talk about that. Like, don't talk about this. Like, go. And just left on her own. And she literally thought that her body was dying.
Yeah, and it's written in the Bible, right? It's unclean. You have to go outside the camp. You have to.
Well, you can't be in the temple.
Right. You know, just for being who you are, for being a woman.
Right.
You know,
for having this ability, this gift. Yeah. So
it's crazy.
All of that to say, that shame is just very much in the beginning of it. Well, in the beginning of it, but also like you get very good at learning how to like hold tampons in your sleeves so you don't see them in your hand when you're walking to the bathroom. Because now people know if you take your purse when you go to the bathroom, that means you're on your period. And it's like, why does anyone care or need to know or care if they do know that you're on your period? And yet we have all of these like things that women are like taught. And I remember the first time, like one of my friends was like, well, you can like reach into your bag and like push the tampon up into your sleeve. That way no one can see it. And it just looks like you're getting something. And then you go to the bathroom. Like no one would know. And it's like, why are we like secretly passing tricks about how to hide this thing? But it's because it is so shameful. Then you get into this. Yeah.
You know, one of the, just
no, please.
But like, think about this idea of having to hide the fact that you're on your period. Because what does it mean when you're on your period? Well, it means you're not fertile, right? You can't, at that point, you're not useful, right? Is that not a subtext? Like,
wow.
If you're on your period, you're not useful from a male point of view because you cannot procreate right now. So go away from me until you're actually useful to me and can make me a baby. That's I mean, maybe that's a root of that shame, but that just hit me when you said that. You know,
yeah.
Why do we, is it because of blood? No, I mean, people bleed. I mean, some people don't like blood, but you know, it's a deeper cultural zeitgeist in a sense that,
right.
And I think it is deeply misogynistic and embedded in this idea that if you're not fertile, you're not, and again, it goes back to the menopausal woman. Not beautiful anymore, not useful because you can't bear children.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible is there's multiple stories about women who can't bear, you know, I mean, a curse was to not bear any more children. That, you know, to pray that I might have children, you know, and I mean,
right.
it's a huge, you know, thing throughout. And again, it reduces women to being incubators.
Yes.
And we play into it with this. You know, we play into it with and that's just, and we say that's just society, but I guess I say, can we challenge that? How can we effectively challenge that? And how do I as a man support that? Because I don't know what it's like to have a period. I can only imagine the shame that you're describing, this collectivist shame, but what can I do as a supporter, as an advocate? How can I help this? What do you think? I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Other than talking about it, which we're doing, but what else? How else can I help?
think absolutely this. Yes. I think too, you are also in a really beautiful position as being a father to a young woman, you know, and that is actually, I think, where, however Freudian and psychological we want to get here, but a lot of the shame that children learn is from their parents, right? And when my friend's mom went to her mom and her mom said, we don't talk about that, that is the message loud and clear. And she learned everything on her own and had to like figure it out pre-internet. Right. And so I think but especially a father to a young woman, having that specific dynamic, because there are the things that we just don't talk about, right? But then there are also the things that we can talk about as women, but you don't talk about that with men. You do not talk about that with men. And I think breaking that boundary and that barrier down is a really big part of this, because when you tell a woman you don't talk about this with men, that actually means you don't talk about it in public. because the public is inherently patriarchal, right? And so you have to be in a private space in order to be fully open about femininity or womanhood because it's icky or weak. And so I think like growing up, there was a period of time where my dad couldn't say the word tampon. And eventually I was just like, are you joking? Like you gay, I am your daughter. This is a normal thing. You need to be able to say the word tampon. And now, of course, he can. And we've talked about it a lot. But of course, your daughter is an older woman now. But I think just being able to talk about it normally and not feel weird about it, because even though there is maybe this thing that feels connected to like a woman's inherent sexuality, it's like there actually isn't anything sexual about it at all. It's just a natural process, and we should be able to talk about it when it comes up normally. The same way we say, hey, I gotta go to the bathroom. Like, you're not going to like be gross about it or graphic about it if you're at dinner, but you don't have to, like, we don't say I have to go powder my nose anymore, right? It's like you can just be honest about the thing that's happening because it's a bodily function. I think for dads, especially of younger women, if there's anyone out there listening, buy your daughter tampons or pads. Be a resource for her if she has questions. If, you know, you're out and about and someone has a leak, like give her your jacket and don't make her feel weird about asking. Like little things like this that it's, I think oftentimes in that situation, because there is the power dynamic of father to daughter, when the daughter is significantly younger, I think it is a little bit on the dad to be the one to start the conversation, to make it known that it's like, it's okay for us to talk about this. Once the daughter is like an adult, it's like, okay, now this, you have your autonomy. This is about your body. I don't want to cross into a boundary that you may not be comfortable discussing with me. And so I think that's certainly a delicate balance to strike and depends on your relationship with your family. But I would also say if there are like brothers or grandparents or uncles that are really prominent figures in young women's lives, like make sure that they're all on the same page, that no one is sending this message of shame, and especially with like other older men, not sexualizing the young women in your family, because that has happened a lot and I think contributes a lot to shame as well. And there is this weird thing where like I feel lucky to not have any like direct memories of anyone in my family ever making me feel uncomfortable in that way. I've certainly seen it happen where like uncles and grandparents and stuff have like directly sexualized like a woman waitress that we have right in front of me. And it's like, that's an 18-year-old that is serving us a meal, and you're saying this in front of, like, I'm 16 and we're having this meal here. That's crazy. Within a bigger picture of like not just young women who are coming into this and experiencing this, I think it is just continuing that and not making it weird or icky. And if you are the one that feels weird about it, like ask yourself, why do I feel weird about it? Where does that weirdness sit? Where does that fear sit, and why? Is that just your gut reaction? And if that is a gut reaction, why? Because sure, like not everyone likes blood, but we've all gotten a paper cut and you put a Band-Aid on it and you move on, right? It's like these are things that happen, and that's probably not actually what it's about unless you actually have like a phobia of blood or something, right? And same thing with like bodies and bras. I think it does go back to this like commodification of womanhood, and in masculine spaces trying to do feminist work. I was really thinking about this a lot after our last conversation about this last week. I think in areas where men and women are having this conversation together, it is men's responsibility to uphold and support and make room and space for women's voices. I think in spaces where men really want to be at the forefront of the feminist work, it is their job to do that in male spaces, in masculine spaces, to call men out when they are perpetuating these things, even if it's in the locker room or if it's just with your buddies, right? Because we all hear that it's like, oh, well, it's locker room talk, whatever. Doesn't matter. Like, you still believe that? Like, you still think it's okay to say that? No. And that really is where I think if men are serious about doing feminist work, do it not in front of women. Do it when women aren't there.
I love that.
Like,
yeah.
I think that is a thing oftentimes that you do see of men being like, well, how do I support? And it's like, okay, well, when you hear one of your buddies say something wrong and there's no women around and you're like, oh, well, no one knows, like, I'm not going to say anything. No, that's the time to do it. If, you're a son of a father and you're really trying to do this work, that's a great time to do it, right? Like, and if a buddy is doing or saying anything like that, those are the spaces where women are not going to feel safe speaking up because of their safety, and that's where men need to be involved. That went in a bunch of different areas, and I talked for a while, but those are some thoughts.
Oh, I love it, and I think what I took away from it is, number one, be willing to listen as a man. Be willing to listen and not immediately have that male view of, oh, this is a woman stuff I don't need to talk about. I don't need to listen. Don't tell me about that. So be open, be receptive, but also challenge things when it's difficult.